Hey guys, welcome to iNVision Prototypes. I'm Nick, and today I'm working on the deck lid for the M40C build. You've seen me wheel up the trunk skin, you've seen me build the structure, we set the latches, set the hinges, got it all working, and now we are at a stage where we're bringing it all together into one unit. And this is where your mistakes are going to show. If you've underwheeled or overwheeled the skin, it will show. If your perimeter edges aren't turned just right, it will show. So let's hope that everything works out. Because, well, there's no turning back. You'd have to really unfold everything and kind of smooth everything out, or you'd have to wheel up a whole new trunk skin, and I'm not prepared to do that at this stage. It's not like going out, buying a repop, whatever, and folding the skin over a structure. Sometimes it works out, other times you have to make little adjustments. I've been working on this for, well, quite a while now, and as you can see, I've got the two joined together, and now I'm on the final leg of tightening up all the hems to make sure it is where it needs to be. Now you might be asking, how did he get the skin and the structure aligned perfectly? Well, that took a bit of finagling. We had the structure up in the car, made sure all the perimeter flanges fit the quarter panels, made sure everything worked out there, took the structure down, put the skin up on top, and then reverse taped it. Basically took all the lines from, you've seen me do this before, took an extended lines from the edges of the trunk lid, front, back sides, and then reverse taped it onto the deck lid, onto the skin I should say. Made sure that everything aligned that way, took those lines, transposed them to the inside, flipped it upside down, brought the structure in, aligned everything, and then we placed some clamps in some very strategic locations where you wouldn't see if we had a bit of a bite mark. We can grind it out and you wouldn't see it. So basically in the corners, clamped it, and because the trunk lid is a little bit sprung, we had to kind of bring it up very gently together. So first I took care of the front because that had the least amount of curvature, pinned the back corners. We had to reduce the amount of material we're rolling over on the corners, because if you roll over too much, the corner's not going to roll too well. It's going to have like a jagged edge. And then we focused on the sides and brought those in just a bit at a time, all the way around, until the flange rolled right on over. And at that point, it fell into place. But you just have to make sure, because with the shape like this, there's no moving it around after you've got it over, the flange is over. So past while, I've gone through a couple of shirts. It's pretty darn warm out today. I've been going around and just working this edge all the way around, a little at a time, until we have a relatively tight hem. Now, I don't want to over tighten it where we have a knife edge. You know, it could decapitate somebody if they reach into the trunk and it comes down. I'm kidding. We don't want this edge to be too sharp, because paint has a tendency not to stick on very sharp edges. So we kind of want a soft radius around the perimeter of this trunk skin. So what you essentially have to do, place the dolly on the outside edge and with a wide face hammer. Now they've got tools for this, but I like the personal hand touch where you go around and just feel it around and hem it that way. That way I can control how much hem I'm getting and where I'm hemming it, and if I need to move an edge in or out, I can still do that. Like, it's not too late yet. Once I bring that hem down nice and snug, that's it, there's no moving it. So if you've got a bit of a flat spot or a bit of a high spot, there's no going back, unless you grind it out and weld it. You don't want to get into that. So anyway, here we go. See, the corners were mitered on 45 degrees, so when the flanges came together, we're not overlapping them. If you look at a factory trunk lid on your car, just open your trunk lid, you'll see what I'm talking about. The corner is just a little bit open, so when the flanges roll in, they don't overlap each other, and we have a nice flat surface. Now, as I'm hammering this, I'm not actually hammering the very edge. I'm hammering the top edge of the flanges rolled down inside. I don't know if you can see from the distance over there. We want this to remain relatively soft, as I mentioned, but we want that edge to bite into the structure. I keep interrupting my progress here, but they have hammers for hemming skins onto doors, onto whatever. In this case here, this is a very flat face, obviously, and I'm able to either work the flat surface, or by just tipping the hammer ever so slightly, I can work the inside flange inward. The hammer I'm talking about comes to a kind of a thick, blunt point. a little more blunt than this one here. And that's what allows you to kind of tuck it in. If I wanted to, I could use this, but it's a bit too sharp. And in this case, I'm just going to use the flat face and just work the top in. I'm checking the reflection of the lights along this edge, and that's what's giving me the width of my flange as well as the consistency of it. Here I have a weld, and didn't quite roll over correctly on that weld, so we're gonna have to dress that up later on. But everything else is coming in well. When you're hammering, you don't need a death grip on the hammer. Just let it float in your hand, make it an extension of your hand. I noticed that there was a bit of the line moved inward a bit here. So in order to move this lip outward, I basically took and hammered it in an outward direction. So as it's tightening, it's moving outward. And that helped correct that. You have to be careful when you do that because you don't want to take and start messing up the skin on the outside skin. You just want to control the flange. Okay, I think I'm going to go around one more time, around the perimeter, make sure everything's good. I see a little spot over there. And then we're going to get this trunk lid up on the car. And you want to make sure that the foam that you have on the horses is correctly supporting the skin. You don't want to create any tension points, create dents in your skin. So always make sure it's properly supported. Let's fix this over here. This area here, this flange is a little bit down. I'm going to tip that up afterwards. I'll get the slapper in there and just tidy that up. The biggest thing is reflections. Always watch your reflections, see what they're doing, because that's going to tell you where the sheet metal is. And here we are, well, a little bit of a high spot right there. I actually felt it when I glanced my hand off. Okay. We're going to be creating a little cosmetic panel that fits into here, closes that off nice and neat. Alrighty. So now we can get this trunk skin up on the car and fit the edges to make sure that they fit the quarter panels. There's no funny things going on. And then we can get some tacks on it and call this trunk lid done. So give me a few minutes, I'll get the fasteners and we'll get this up there. Okay, so when it comes to working with body filler, sanding it down, there's a little trick you want to do so that you maintain the proper curvature of your panel. Normally, first of all, when I'd be sanding this, I'd be wearing a respirator or a mask just to make sure that I'm not inhaling this stuff, because it really can't be too good for you. It smells good, but not too good for you. So we've got a sanding block here. I've got some 40 grit for now in it. I do my initial cutting with a bit of 40, and then I'll move up in grits 80, 120, 240, and so on until we get a nice smooth finish. In this case here, since these are just molds, we're not going to get too crazy in terms of the grit, and we're just going to block this out so it's straight, give it a coat of paint so we can apply release agent and then go from there. If I took this sanding block and just went straight up and down and kind of cut and sanded and back and forth like this, I'd get a bunch of straight cut lines with the sanding block, and I wouldn't be conforming to the curvature of the panel. So what you want to do is take and block around the corner in a crisscross manner. The crisscross helps you cut the material down a little bit faster and show any low spots as you're sanding. Normally, like I said, I wear a respirator, but you can't really talk with a respirator. So I'm going to take my time and just very gingerly, gently block this in such a way that you can see what's happening with the surface as I'm sanding it. So you see, that's my first set of cuts, and you can see the darker green, that's the low spot. So now we switch direction. I was going up and to your right. Now I'm going down and to your right again. It's like riding a bicycle. You can't really explain how to ride a bicycle. I mean, you grab a sanding block and then you experiment. Like, even though this is a straight line here, I'm still doing the crisscross pattern. And you want to use the longest block possible for the area you're blocking. Now in this case here, this is going to suffice. Now say I was sanding the side of a car, I would try and use the longest block possible, and if I can't get one, I'd make one. So when we did the Cadillac, we actually made a block using a piece of hardwood, a rigid piece of hardwood that was about 6.5 feet long. So we could block the car out end to end and get a nice straight body side. You don't want to take and sand down all the material you put on. As soon as you start seeing your shiny high spots, like there, or you can't see that, but you see a shiny spot, a high spot, and a high spot here, you stop. And you add a tiny bit more filler into the low spots, and you should be able to call it done. 2, maximum 3 times to apply filler. First time you kind of rough it in and get an idea as to where you are. Second, third time you finish the panel. You can see here, the dark spot, that's a high spot, but that's resin, and it is a bit high, so I can cut through that. There's no matting in this area, I know that. And I'm going to feather this off into the sheet metal area and have it kind of fade off. You don't want a sharp edge because that will show. Like even up in here, I'm going down and to the right, up and to the right, down to the right. And that's it. I'm going to stop because I noticed that I have a little bit of a low spot here. I'm good here. I'm good here. You can see that little dark spot, but just above it, it's a bit flat. And that's where the plastic ended and the sheet metal took off. You can mix it up all you want. You know, just don't stand in one direction up and down because it's not going to get you anywhere. So that's going to be it for that area. It's coming out quite nice. A little bit of a low spot there, and up and through here. So I'll add a tiny bit more filler and that'll take care of that. The rest of this is perfect. So basically you do this over and over until you finish leveling out your panels. And like I said, there's a lot of material that comes off. So if you can choose or find where your low spots are and just only fill those low spots, then you're not cutting everything off. If you skim coated the whole whatever you're doing and blocked it out, 75% of that would end up on the floor and your low spots would have material in them, which is what you really want in the first place. So if you can find those low spots first and then fill them up and then block those out, then you're further ahead. So anyway, I'm gonna throw my mask on and sand out all these interior panels and then throw a little more filler on them and have that set up while we're doing other stuff.